broadcasting live from the Roanoke Valley of southwestern Virginia. Join us and see what life looks like from a medium's perspective with Reverend Tracey Lockwood, the medium's medium. We'll explore the tools of psychic development, hear stories and experiences from the other side, and learn to listen to our natural intuition. Now, our host, Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Today we have another amazing and interesting guest. And as it is my way, before we get started, I'm going to have to do a little shameless self-promotion and just remind you that if you're interested in studying psychic mediumship and you would like a private teacher, that would be me. Or other people in the world. And I offer it via Zoom, which is a live webinar format, so you can see and hear me and you can study from your home. I offer a 3-tiered mediumship program, beginning, intermediate, and advanced, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 weeks. And I offer a 12-week certification program privately and channeling privately. And then I also teach the 12-week certification program twice a year in a group setting, and also the channeling twice a year in a group setting. So if you're interested in that or some other stuff, visit my website at mediumtracylockwood.com. Well, I know you all are waiting for the reveal, and I'm going to tell you about our guest before I give you his name here. You might guess by the time we get there, but anyway, I have to try it this way. So, first of all, he is a channel for spirit, and he specializes in we'll ask him specifically who this is and what this is, but the Michael channelings. And he is an intuitive reader. He is a medium. He does past life regression. He works with healing, and he does counseling one-on-one and possibly in other settings. And he is a channeling coach. So I feel a little shy sitting up next to him saying, yeah, I teach channeling, but mine's good too. It might not be the same, but it's good. And he conducts workshops on the Michael teaching all over the United States. And he's authored some really interesting books. Journey of Your Soul is a channel exploring the Michael teachings. There's a really funny one called Enlightenment for Nitwits, the complete guide as well. That would probably be good for me. And he has written Unconditional Love in Politics, Why Are We Attracted, Happiness and the Michael Teachings, Loving from Your Soul, Meditations for Self-Discovery. One that's particularly interesting too, Opening to Healing. Well, they're all interesting, duh. Growing Through Joy and Being in the World. He's a graduate of the University of Oregon. He lives in Laguna Niguel, California, and I welcome to the show Shepherd Hoodwin. Welcome, Shepherd.
Thank you so much.
Well, I'm so happy. I know our guests are nosy, as they always, not you, our listeners are nosy, as they always are. And so I wanted to let them have your website initially, and it is shepherdhoodwin.com. That's Shepherd, SHEPHERD, Shepherd with a PH, Hoodwin, pretty much like it sounds, HOODWIN, shepherdhoodwin.com. Well, yay! You're here.
I'm here. We're doing it.
much. We're doing it. It's getting real. It's going to get real. That's right. And so usually because I created the show to give an insight to people that don't know much about the discipline of mediumship and its related fields, and it's called From a Medium's Perspective, the idea is to let people kind of see inside our world and also realize why we do what we do. And I wondered if at first you could just sort of tell us how being what you are has shifted your perspective on life. Big question.
I feel so blessed to be doing what I'm doing, as I'm sure you do as well, because working with spirit in this way on a daily basis is a spiritual practice. So not only are we privileged to be this conduit for other people, but we get to listen in on all of this fascinating and growthful information, and then we grow. And so I feel like it has expanded me a great deal. I find that I don't really have fear of death. I easily can feel connected to my loved ones who are no longer in physical form, those on the other side. Of course, if you lose someone you love, you do grieve for them, but it doesn't have the same edge because you know that you haven't lost them forever, that you're still connected.
And it's really understood at such a deep level, it's real. It's, yeah.
Yes. And when so many people in religions or spiritual circles talk about their ideas about what happens after death or what the universe is like, I think a lot of it is very theoretical, or they hope it's true, or they have faith that it's true. But there's so many things now that I simply know, I have no doubts about. I know that I'm an eternal soul who reincarnates. It's not a question of, well, I believe it and you don't, or vice versa. It's just something that I've had so much experience of that it is deeply my reality.
Yeah. It's life-changing, really. I don't know that we go into it going, "Oh, I think I'll have a life-changing experience," but it certainly is in the process. And thank you for that. So I think I'd like to start out, and you feel free to guide things in any direction you wish, but I was wanting to sort of, have you talk a little bit about the Michael teachings, who Michael is, or what Michael is, and maybe tell us a little bit about your story of getting to the point that you were channeling Michael.
Michael is a name that we've given to a group of 1,050 souls who each had a series of lifetimes on the physical plane here on Earth, just as we are each doing. They all completed the physical plane, and they also completed the second plane, which is the astral plane, and worked together as a reuniting entity or group soul on what they refer to as the causal plane. And part of their growth is involved in teaching other souls, including those here on the physical plane that we call Michael students, people who are interested in what they teach. There are so many wonderful high plane teachers that are available. The Michael group is unique in that they have brought forth a complete system of understanding with its own terminologies that explains how we as souls set up our series of lifetimes here on Earth. It is the most fascinating and liberating material that I've ever come across, and after over 30 years, I still find it quite engrossing, and I keep learning new things about it. One thing that I do is I channel what are called Michael reading charts, which is a one-page chart that has over 20 pieces of information, each of which are channeled from Michael. They look up in the Akashic records a series of traits that they've explained to us. So, for example, they teach that there are 7 different types of souls. I just love this because, most spiritual and religious people do believe that we are eternal souls, that at our core there's something about us that doesn't die. But what I love about the Michael teachings is that they explain that there are different kinds, that they're not all the same. I think the concept of the soul tends to be quite vague, and the Michael teachings brings it into a sharp focus that says, well, different souls are built in different ways, and that helps explain to us why we are the way we are, what our strengths and weaknesses are, and why others are the way they are, and that they're not supposed to have the same strengths and weaknesses that we do, that we complement in that way. And for many of the traits that they have explained to us, they have a positive pole and a negative pole. So these are energies, and we can embody these energies in the most positive ways, which are love-based, or they can be distorted in some way by fear or inexperience or lack of evolution. But it's the same energy. So then the goal becomes to be in our positive poles more often and in our negative poles less often. We're all going to be in our negative poles sometimes. But the things that make us unhappy are the negative poles. There's nothing on your Michael chart that is intrinsically negative. They can all be positive and beautiful. And so what each of us is beautiful, and we learn how to radiate that by understanding this information more clearly.
I really love the idea of us being 7 rays, colors, vibrations, and different that way. And it makes total sense. You see that number 7 reflected in so many concepts, the basic chakras, the layers of the aura, the 7 levels of heaven, that kind of thing, that kind of, and that just is so beautiful to me. It's just beautiful to me.
One of the concepts that Michael has taught us about the soul is that one input. An input is a psychic receiver, and that means that some souls receive one piece of information from the universe at a time, and that makes them more focused, grounded, simple, down to earth, better at concentrating. They concentrate their power. And the 3 roles, the 3 soul types that have just one input are called warriors, kings, and scholars. And then there are 2 soul types that have 2 inputs, and they are both inspirational in nature. These are called servers and priests. You're a priest soul. And servers and priests have 2 inputs, so that, like the warriors, kings, and scholars, they have one input that can concentrate on the world as it is, sort of common basic reality, but they can also focus on one other thing and combine the 2. And as a priest, you have an input for the higher good while you are paying attention to current reality, and you're always trying to blend those 2 things. Servers have a second input that is focused on the common good. So while they are paying attention to the objective world, they are also always looking at what will serve the most people, and they try to combine those 2 things. Then we have 2 soul types or roles that are about self-expression. Sages, which is what I am, sages have 3 inputs, and that is ideal for example, performing on the stage, because sages can pay attention to the audience, to their fellow actors, and to the script all at the same time. And so rather than finding being up in front of an audience draining, as, say, a warrior might, sages are exhilarated by it. And then artisans have the most inputs. They have 5 inputs, and it can make them scattered and spacey, but it makes them the most gifted artists and creators, because creativity has a lot to do with taking a bunch of components and breaking them down and rearranging them, which artisans excel at doing. And so there literally is a different construction to the different soul types. We also know that a soul has one of 4 qualities. A soul is either inspirational, which means that they focus on the internal world like priests and servers do, or they're expressive, which means that they are about self-expression. They are about bringing the inner world into the outer world. So they're the connectors. And then the 2 solid roles of warrior and king are about action. So they are focused in the outer world. So you have inner, outer, and what brings the inner into the outer. You have one more soul type called scholar. Scholars are neutral, and they are assimilative in nature. So they're like the library. They are a resource for the other 3 roles. And so that's how we come up with the 7 roles.
It's just really fascinating. You were kind enough to have gifted me the sort of the breakdown of the essences, the essence and the overleaves. And I just found it so curious. It wasn't, I feel like it's almost like an inner astrology or a higher astrology. I don't know. It's sort of like goes past the left brain art of astrology into, I don't know. It's really interesting to me.
If you get a good astrological reading and you get your Michael chart together, they make a really nice picture of your life and how you set it up. Astrology, because it's based on your birth time in this lifetime, is more focused on the current lifetime and what your karma and lessons are about and when they will happen. The Michael teachings includes information that is true of you in this lifetime specifically. Those are called the overleaves. But it also has information that's true of you in every lifetime that you will have as a human being on Earth. And so it's more of the bigger picture of things.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. And you also included a glossary of terms that have evolved out of your channeled work. And that was interesting, too. They're very particular, like specific meanings for things.
Yes, and it's similar to astrology in that way, that you have terms that you need to know the specific definitions of because they don't mean exactly the same things as they might mean in ordinary day-to-day English. And the glossary and all of this material is available on my website, shepherdhoodwin.com.
Yes, yeah, thank you for that. I'm curious, and this may sound like an ignorant question, but this is original to you and your Michael, right? Like this is...
No, I am not the originator of the Michael teachings.
Okay.
I am the fortunate beneficiary of the work of many other Michael channels. This is another thing that is unique about the Michael teachings, in that they have this quite specific system, and it's come through quite a number of different channels since 1973. The first Michael channel was a woman named Sarah Chambers in Oakland, California. Sarah had been meeting with a group of friends for years studying various spiritual topics. And in 1971, they decided to experiment at the Ouija board, and she started channeling. First, she channeled an extraterrestrial, someone who's on the physical plane from another planet, and then she started channeling a guide from the astral plane, and after 2 years, Michael came through and started dictating this system.
Oh, interesting.
And she developed hundreds of pages of transcripts from this, and in the middle 70s, she met a pretty well-known author named Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough, who's more known for her vampire novels. And she sold the rights to this material to Yarbrough, who wrote a book that became somewhat of a bestseller in 1978-79 called Messages from Michael. And she ended up coming up with 4 Michael books, and especially the first 2 books have been one of the most important foundations of the Michael teachings. And over the decades, there have been quite a number of people who have added to this material. There are over 20 different books on the Michael system. My book is called Journey of Your Soul, A Channel Explores the Michael Teachings. And you can see excerpts from that on my website. So there's not a lot of this chart material that originated through me. There's a little bit of it that is my own original stuff. But most of us have used, and in some cases, refined material that has come through others. And it keeps growing. We keep learning new things about the universe because different channels are gifted more in certain areas than in others.
Different aspects, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people might think, oh, a channel just sits there and talks or whatever like that, and they're all the same. Not at all. Not at all. It's not that the energies aren't all higher vibrational beings, or should be, but it's maybe the resonance of that person. What do you think about that?
In Journey of Your Soul, I devote the first 100 pages to exploring channeling itself. Because when I first started channeling, I had so many questions about it. And so I started talking to a lot of other channels, and I also started channeling about channeling. And it is a very complex process, and it's a collaborative process. So when you channel an entity, they have to use, to some degree at least, the resources and the language and the knowledge of the channel, and it's going to come through at least a little differently from everyone. And we especially see this in the Michael teachings because everyone does have a different instrument, and the teachings come through a little differently, and they don't always agree on everything. And in addition, because Michael is a group of 1,050 souls, we're not all working with the same members of the group, and so there can be differences in that regard. But I would say that there is at least an 80% consensus where the material is the same or very similar. And then there are some different takes on things. And in a way, it's a good thing that it's not monolithic, because Michael doesn't want anyone to take any sort of spiritual or any other kind of information with blind faith. They want people to use the information and validate it and see what they can prove from their own life to be true or not. Because otherwise it's just dogma. You're just accepting someone else's word for it. Some of the things on the Michael chart you can prove in your own life if you know enough about it and if you observe yourself. Some of the stuff would be a little harder for you, and so to validate it, but you can just try it out and see how it feels anyway.
Yeah. When you prepare for a session, or have a client and you're going to or channeling for a group, I guess that's a totally different question. When you're preparing for a channeling session in front of a group, what do you do? What's your process?
I take some time to clear myself. I've learned a number of energy work exercises from a variety of teachers over the decades. All of us can benefit from doing a grounding exercise on a daily basis, because many of us are not in our bodies, and our bodies are not as well connected to the earth as much as would be ideal for us. And being grounded before bringing in Michael's very rapidly vibrating energy is important for the safety of one's body. And so I work with grounding, I work with clearing, On a daily basis, I work with sending back other people's energies to them and calling my energies back to me.
That separation of what's mine and what's yours. Yeah.
Yes, right. And just anything that one can do to feel clear, relaxed, releasing tension, releasing what the spiritual teacher John Friedlander calls matching pictures or stuck mental pictures that you're carrying around that need to be released so that you can live in the moment. Any energies that are unresolved from the past. All of these things, by clearing and improving one's energy field, it does help you be a clearer channel. But, we all have our blocks, we all have our misconceptions, our faulty beliefs, our traumas. And so before channeling, we want to do our very best to put them aside and ask that our own personal opinions about things not influence the channeling. And so to do that to the best of our ability is going to better give other people what they need to receive through us.
Yeah. When I teach, I'm always talking about drop your ego and your intellect, which we have a hard time of letting go because that's how we interface with the world, basically. So.
Yes.
Yeah. And you had alluded a little bit to the focus of Michael's teaching, but would you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. Shall we talk about your Michael chart?
Oh, sure. Of course. If it's about me, of course.
And I think that will illuminate the Michael teachings.
Okay, that's a great. This is a good thing. Yes.
I have done over 10,000 Michael charts for people all over the world over about 31 years, and have them all in my database here.
Wow.
And the top half of the chart is your essence, or the eternal part of you, the part of you that you take with you from lifetime to lifetime. The bottom half are your overleaves, which are your personality traits that overlay or lay on top of your soul and that are in this combination for this lifetime only. And you'll notice that there are 4 columns which allude to the 4 qualities that I mentioned earlier: inspiration, the inner world; expression, which is creativity and communication of what is within into the outer world; action, which is the outer world; and assimilation, which is study and collecting data and so forth. And you'll also notice on your chart that the first 3 are divided into ordinal and cardinal. Ordinal is detail and cardinal is general or big picture. And so knowing these different qualities tells you already a lot about their traits. I mentioned that you are a priest soul. Priests are the second most cardinal role, meaning that priests are quite influential. They like dealing with large concepts in an inspirational way. You'll notice that priest is on the inspiration axis and is on the cardinal side. So you function, your basic way of being as a soul is to inspire people to your vision of the higher good. The positive pole for priest is compassion. Priests are the most compassionate of the souls. They love helping people. They understand people. They feel for people. They make excellent healers. In addition to being spiritual teachers, you'll find a lot of doctors, nurses, therapists of all kinds are priest souls. The negative pole of priest is zeal, which is where the priest gets carried away with her idea of the higher good and maybe rams it down people's throat, inflicts guilt trips on them,
or works 24 hours a day about it.
Yes, right. So the goal is always to be in the positive pole of compassion, which includes compassion for yourself.
Good reminder.
Most souls have an essence twin, which is the same thing as your twin soul or your twin flame. It is not necessarily the same thing as your soul mate, because you can have a number of soulmates.
Yes, yes.
But your essence twin has the role that we call sage. I'm a sage, as I mentioned. And that means that you're going to be attracted to sage souls, since you have that as a twin soul. Now, in addition, priests tend to be attracted to server souls because they share the inspiration axis. And they also tend to be attracted to scholars because priests and warriors both are the most intense of the 7 roles, and scholars are the most neutral. And so that's a case of opposites attracting. So just based on having Michael charts, you can make some predictions about who someone will be attracted to, which is another
that's so
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because your essence twin is discarnate, meaning not currently living inside a body on the physical plane, that soul is almost living within you, and you have a high amount of what we call bleed-through, meaning that you get secondary traits from the role of sage. And the domain of the sage is intellectual. Sages are people who seek insight above all, whereas priest is more emotional. Priest is more about the feeling of inspiration. And so you combine those two. Sages are the quintessential communicators and also are famous for their senses of humor. Priests can tend to take life awfully seriously, but because you have that sage essence twin bleed through, it lightens you up. It makes you also very able to laugh and see the absurdities of life.
That's interesting. So in people's different charts, like let's say somebody else ends up that they're a priest also, and would their essence twin always be a sage, or does that vary also?
Everything on the chart can vary, so there's no two things that always have to go together. You can have absolutely any combination. You can have a priest with a server essence twin, a priest with a priest essence twin, etc. And 5% of the population don't have an essence twin, and that's a different way of experiencing Earth.
Does that mean that they're more likely to meet someone in the physical world that is in that AKA twin soul role, or what does it have nothing to do with that at all if they don't have one in their essence?
Souls who do not have an essence twin are often having lessons about, instead of having complements or work partners in other people, they're looking to find it more within themselves.
Oh, interesting. Sort of a healing journey to the Earth. Yeah.
Well, if you think of Earth as a vast university, each soul who comes here chooses its own curriculum. It's a self-directed curriculum. And so you, as an eternal spark of the Tao, the all that is, think, oh, this is an interesting planet. I think I'd like to have a cycle of lifetimes there. And then you think about, well, what would I like to expand for the Tao? What kinds of lessons would I like to explore the ins and outs of? And so whatever is on your chart is what you chose at some point as what you were most interested in doing. And so it's sort of like looking at a college catalog, and you're picking your courses. And so your chart tells you the courses that you chose and the souls that you wanted to be in class with.
Didn't mean to interrupt or deviate. Go ahead. Tell me some more about me.
Enough about me. Let's talk about my chart.
Enough about all that stuff. What about me?
The third line on your chart has a series of 3 numbers, 414, and we call this your casting. And this means that you're in a group of 7 priests, and you're in the 4th position, which is the scholar position. So we would say that you have scholar casting. And that means that you especially like to do your priest thing in the scholar domain, which is information.
Yes,
so because you have sage bleed through and scholar casting, it means that you like to collect and disseminate knowledge. And obviously that's what you're doing with your show and with your practice.
That's interesting. Interesting.
Your secondary casting is the second number 1, which is server. And that means that you also like to direct your priest inspiration and your sage insight into the realm of the server, which is the realm of taking care of people's needs. It's the realm of nurturing. Yes. So you do both of those things. Your third number is another 4, so it just reinforces your scholar primary casting. You have that very strong. So as priests go, you're very much oriented towards knowledge and insight.
Okay, yes, thank you.
The next line tells you your cadre and entity. This is your spiritual family. And Michael, through me, would call that 2-7, cadre 2, entity 7. And what you need to know about that today is that you are in a spiritual family that is almost done with the physical plane. And those that are still coming to the physical plane more often tend to go to Asia. And so you're one of the relatively few that are showing up in my life here in the United States. What I often find is that people in cadres 1 and 2 often have a strong attraction to Eastern religions and Asian cultures. Do you find that to be true for you?
Absolutely. I'm fascinated by that philosophy and resonate well with Eastern thought. And my dad was born in India, and I have cousins living in Sri Lanka and India.
How about that?
In China and Japan, and yeah, interesting.
So that totally fits.
Absolutely.
And I think we can share with listeners that I don't know you. This is
no. This is the first time we've had to, we've exchanged just the nitty gritty of getting ready for the air, but other than that, no conversation. Absolutely.
I channeled Tracy's chart just simply from her name and photograph and birth information. And I didn't use the birth information astrologically. I'm not an astrologer. I know very little about it. But it's just a way for Michael to better identify whose information they're looking up in the Akashic records.
Yeah, I think of our astrology chart as being sort of the coordinates of our portal of entry that imbue us with certain characteristics to carry out the mission.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. After it says that you're in cadre 2, entity 7, you'll see the terms truth and beauty. This is one part of the Michael teachings that is my original contribution that first came through me. The universe emanates from the Tao. The Tao is undimensional. It's the source. And when the energy, if you would call it that, emanates from the Tao, it splits into 3 qualities: love, truth, and beauty, which is another way of saying emotion, intellect, and manifestation. Those are the 3 building blocks of the universe. And every individual soul orients more towards 1 or 2 of those 3. And most people orient in just one, so most people would orient in just truth or just beauty, but some of us combine 2 of those. And so what that means is that you as an eternal soul are always trying to integrate truth and beauty, meaning that you want to manifest truth in your body, in energy, in form. You want truth to be beautiful, and you want beauty to be truthful. And that is so intrinsic to who you are that you may not even notice that that's who you are, but that is very basic to your being.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, I actually have like this little saying that I joke around with my friends with that, like, oh, Tracy, don't do ugly.
Yes. That's right.
Even if I have nearly nothing at, different times of my life. I don't care if I was pulling, furniture out of a dumpster and decorating from Goodwill. It looked good. So that's so interesting. And I like that inversion about truth, wanting truth to be beautiful and beauty to be truthful. That's beautiful. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Yes. And Task Companion is another soul that you team up with at the beginning. And this is kind of the opposite of your essence twin or twin soul. Your essence twin is a soul that works with you on internal lessons. When you are together with your essence twin, which is not very often, you're not with your essence twin more than 10 to 30% of your lifetimes. But when you are, you tend to get very involved in each other, and you tend to shut out the outer world, which is why you are not with your essence twin in very many lifetimes, because in most of your lifetimes, your soul wants to experience the world and have lessons out there. Now, the Task Companion is someone who helps you do your life task, and so it looks out into the world. And so this is someone, if you happen to know them in the flesh, and again, you won't always know them on the physical plane, is someone who will complement your task. So, for example, maybe that soul would be your business manager to help you do your task, but would do the business end of it, and you would do the spiritual end of it. Now, your Task Companion is another sage soul, so you are attracted to sages very strongly. You chose a sage to be your essence twin and a sage to be your Task Companion. So that just tells us how important that communicative sage energy is to you as a soul, because this is not just in this lifetime, this is all your Earth lifetimes.
Yeah.
The next item on the chart is your male-female energy ratio. In the Michael teachings, when we say male or female energy, we aren't speaking about societal stereotypes about what is masculine or feminine. We're just talking about one
necessarily. Yeah.
We're talking here about how much of your soul's energy is goal-oriented. And so souls can, someone could be a woman and could be considered to be quite feminine, but if she has very high male energy, that means that she's probably been in the male body more often, and she tends to be quite goal-oriented. So let's say a woman who's just always working on her career, that's very important to her, and she will devote as many waking hours to it, to that one thing, because it's a goal, one thing. That would be high male energy. And high female energy are people that are more radiating, and so they're doing a lot of different things. They're not focused on one goal, but they're creating an atmosphere more. You are right in the middle range, as most of us are. Anywhere from 40 to 60, the majority of us are in that range, and that means it makes it pretty easy for you to be both male and female. And priests are equally comfortable as male and female anyway, whereas warriors, kings, and scholars tend to be more comfortable as males. Servers and artisans tend to be more comfortable as females, although there are individual exceptions.
Interesting. So I noticed mine's 4159. So which is which?
41 male, 59 female. So you have half again as much female energy as male, and you will be most attracted to partners who are at 59-41. But anyone in the rough vicinity of that is going to exert an attraction on you, and vice versa.
Yeah, I do like balance. That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
Your frequency is 68, and this is not to be confused with your vibration. So the goal is not to increase your frequency as it appears on the Michael chart. Your frequency is set for all of your Earth lifetimes. It's the speed that you as a soul vibrate at on a scale of 1 to 100. And you are in the higher range, not extremely so. Priest is also a high frequency role. So higher frequencies connect more with the higher planes, and lower frequencies are more earthy. And it has to do with how fast you tend to go through your experiences. Mine's 64, so we're close. And if you're living with someone, you're going to be more comfortable with people whose frequency is within about 20 points of yours. So if you were living, let's say you had a family member whose frequency was 20 and yours is 68, you might love that person and mostly get along with that person, but you might feel a little out of sync because the low frequency person is going to be processing her life experiences with more deliberateness, steadiness, slowness, one thing at a time. Let's do this really gradually. They're going to change more gradually. And the higher frequency types are like a fire that maybe burns brighter but burns out more quickly. They have more intensity, you might say. I've had very few people with a frequency of 100, and it almost felt like they weren't there, like you could put your hand through them.
Like a shooting star or something.
Or a cloud maybe. The first person I got with a frequency of 100 was this very, very soft man, and he had changed his name. His first name was Ade, and his last name was Dream. So he's calling himself a daydream.
Wow.
And he had that frequency of 100.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he knew himself, and he was definitely a daydream, a walking daydream.
Oh, that's so interesting. So I would guess
those are the outliers.
Uh-huh.
And we also will have some people with 100% male or 100% female energy, but it's very rare. They're just interested in exploring the earth in an unusual way.
Wow.
You as an eternal spark of the Tao have had 10 previous grand cycles. So before you were a priest on Earth, you've done 10 other planets in 10 different life forms. And every time you do a new planet, you gain layers, you gain additional capacity for complexity, subtlety, and nuance. The average person on Earth has had 4 previous grand cycles, so they're less complex. And the most we know anyone on Earth has had is 19 previous grand cycles. Now, Earth is a planet that is relatively out in the sticks, and so if you went to incarnate on a planet closer to the center of the universe, their average number instead of 4 might be 20 or 80 or 100. And they're having different kinds of lessons. Nothing is better than anything else. It's just more complexity is not better than less complexity. A higher soul age is not better than a lower soul age.
Yes.
It's just a different part of the color spectrum that you're exploring.
Oh, yes, that's...
So the bottom half of the chart, your overleaves, are traits that can change from lifetime to lifetime. And that's one of the reasons, in addition to different birth times, etc., different parents, different conditioning, different culture, it's one of the reasons that if you do past life regression, you can seem very different in other lifetimes. And that the idea of that is to give the soul a greater variety of experiences. In this lifetime, you have a goal called discrimination, which means that you are motivated and you set up a lifetime that allows you the opportunity to learn to say no, to learn to differentiate between high quality and low quality, to make choices about what you want in your life and what you don't want in your life. And it gives you a highly refined sensibility. This is a goal that is not chosen very often, but we all need to do all the overleaves in one lifetime or another.
Yeah, I would say so. That's bang on.
Yes. Your attitude is how you look at the world. And the 7 attitudes are named after different philosophical schools of thought from the past. There were the Stoics, the Cynics, the Realists, the Idealists, etc. And you are a Stoic. So you look at the world in an inspirational way that says, what's out there really doesn't matter so much. What matters more is what's inside me. And in the positive pole, you are tranquil.
Yeah.
You let things bounce off you.
I've had one of the mediums at Arthur Findlay that was my teacher read for me, and she said, you have such a still soul. And I thought that was an odd thing to say. But it's true in some aspects, not all for sure. There is
yes, you've chosen to live this lifetime with a more internal point of view.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, your mode, which is the way that you meet your goal and the way that you operate in the world, is called aggression mode. And that means that you can juggle a lot of balls at the same time. You are a dynamic person. You get a lot done.
Yes. And I do self-motivate. And some people do perceive that as being aggressive, but I don't, because I have no ill intent. I'm just getting her done. Yep.
Yes. And that's what your soul chose for this lifetime. We can have a center either in our body, our emotions, or our intellect. And in this lifetime, you are intellectually centered. So you first engage with things that come into your world through analysis, and then you tend to move or act based on the clarity that you've gotten intellectually. So we would say that you're in the moving part of the intellectual center. Now, priests are pretty emotional people, but you don't tend to react with your emotions first. So sometimes you have to work a little harder to know what you're really feeling emotionally.
Yes, that's true. I'm sort of coping, and then I just set those aside so that I can keep going. Yes.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, Shepherd, we're at the end. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you
It's been my pleasure.
Oh, I'm so glad. If you want to read Shepherd, Hoodwin.com. Remember, in a kind and without integrity, you have